Welcome back. It's 12:45. It's well past 12:45 when we said we were starting, so we are starting. Audit and Risk Management Committee. Excellent move, Jamie. Seconded, Tim. Thank you. Part A. Any questions? If not, I'll put the report as a whole.
179.
Sorry, you right?
180.
Oh, sorry. Page 179. It starts on. Yeah. Put that. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried. And strategy and finance. Page 253. Moved Jamie, seconded David. Part A. And the report back on the CEO report. And then part B and C. Yanni.
Yeah, I just had a question. There's a number of things in the report back around the LTP, but I just wanted to check. One submission that came to mind was around the Central City rubbish collection, and it seemed a pretty straightforward thing. And I was just wondering if we'd had any progress on that, or whether there's anything we need to do.
It's not quite so straightforward for lots of reasons, but we agreed that there'd be a report back to Council in February.
So
The work's underway, yeah.
So why does it, like...
There are a range of things. So, for instance, it's changes to contracts. There are issues about access. Some of it's not just about putting everything on the road. And there are the community to talk to. Not everybody in the community wants the curbside bins.
Okay, so we're getting a report back in February.
Yeah.
Is there any way to get that sooner than February? I'm just mindful
Sorry?
is there any way to get it sooner than February? Because that's like a year.
There's quite a lot of work to do, Yanni, and there's a whole lot of other work that you were also asking us to do.
Okay, so it's coming back in February?
Is that the CBD, or is it just those
CBD.
people over
It was the
there?
people who made the submissions at the LTP on their...
Just that area, is it?
Well, no, it's broader than that.
Okay.
Okay, so it's coming back in February. Thank you. So with that, I'll put the report as a whole. Or should I? I'm on item 6, actually. Oh, sorry, we've got a seconder and a mover. Let me do this properly. Part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is what we're currently on. And 7 and part B. Put that. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried. Thank you. And I've missed one. Page 195, the block offer. And Phil, I think what might be sensible is, do you want to delegate this to infrastructure to add the appendix?
Just to find if there's any fine tuning and coming from today's discussion, and also right. I'm aware we've had an opinion from legal opinion from Ian, or information as well. So yes. That could, I guess, if we could delegate the signing off decision to the Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee, that process would work best.
Okay, so moved, Phil, seconded.
What are we doing? We're delegating it to
the final sign-off. At the Infrastructure Committee, there was a number of people who made submissions, and they've sent through the things that they want incorporated, practically all of which are incorporated in the council submission, but there's no capacity for the public to make submissions on this, so that we agreed to do it at the Infrastructure Committee by way of an appendix, which is what we did in Block Offer 2014 as well. The legal opinion, which just for anybody's benefit probably costs, I don't know, $7, $12.50. What's 20 minutes for your time?
It's priceless.
Priceless, that's it, sorry. It's not thousands of dollars, is what it was, an internal legal one-pager. Okay, I asked for that one. One of the interesting suggestions, one of the interesting comments made by Ian in the verbal on that was just the lack of the 4 well-beings in the Local Government Act, so that we can't actually act to protect the economic and environmental well-being.
When I did go and have a look at it, and Diane's quite correctly quoted this in the submission, there is a provision there relating to the 4 well-beings, taking the interests of the 4 well-beings into account, and the council was to take a sustained
Right, okay, but not a lot of jurisdiction over the deep sea oil area. Okay, right, I've got,
I'll second it.
okay, I've got, so have we got people here for questions? Or, okay, so initially questions. You've got a question, Glenn, and then I'll take speakers. Yep.
Just over our relationship with MKT, so I do notice impact on Māori. There are 2 points there. It says people can make their own submissions, but we do have that living relationship. So how might that work here? I mean,
So
is that something we
the
can
only
do?
people who can make submissions to the government on this are iwi, hapu and local authorities.
Okay.
Yep.
But we do have a relationship with them, so is there a sense in which we... Okay, the report says no impact, but actually...
Oh, they are allowed to make their own submissions on this, iwi and hapu.
It's not something we do in partnership.
Helen, do you want to come and answer any questions? Even though it's, is it appropriate that we ask them of you?
I've got Diane coming in as
Right.
well.
Okay, right. Okay, are there any other questions? Welcome, Diane.
Diane.
Yep, Yanni?
Oh, just wanted to just check in terms of the resolutions today. I'd like to make some additional resolutions. So would you like me to do that now, or do you want just the...
Do you want to tell us what they are?
Yeah, there's several. The first one is in the submission, actually just adding a 1.3 under 1.2 that says, given the concerns, the above concerns, the council is opposed to the proposed block offer 2016. So quite straightforward.
Right.
The second one is just in regards to the resolutions, is to that the council request ECAN to make a submission and send a copy of our submission noting our concerns, that we also circulate and write to local MPs, relevant ministers, and just to basically make our views known. I think with MMP,
Okay, when we come to that.
we need to start thinking
So
about
you're
that.
just foreshadowing those by way of addition. Okay, that's cool.
Cool.
Yep. Okay, you've got one too, Pauline. Do you want to tell us what it is?
Well, it's just relating to Ian's memo here, and it's about the potentially adverse economic impacts, and that NZPM states that offshore operators have unlimited liability for costs. But he says it might be an idea to provide details of these commitments. So if we could ask them to do that, I think that would be a good thing to include in our submission.
And that came up in the submissions from the public as well.
Yeah.
How much are they actually liable for? Because their suggestion was that it was extremely low.
I know, the bond, that's the bond,
Okay.
but also more details. And also I would like to include the fact that was pointed out in an email from Charles Brace that our waters are particularly rough, and that has a different type of, probably a different risk than drilling in other calmer seas like around Mexico. It adds another risk.
So you just like those things
Yep.
included in the submission?
Mhm.
Okay. And if we delegate to the infrastructure committee to finalise it, that would take account of that. Phil?
My question was along the same lines. It's probably to Ian, just to sort of clarify for us, because just that point Pauline drew our attention to around the unlimited liability for costs in the event of an oil spill, whereas the information we received from the submitters was that around the penalty, that there was a maximum penalty kind of like limited to 10 million. I just wonder if you might be able to explain that a bit further, Ian?
Well, actually, I can't because I don't know enough about that. All I'm passing on to you is that the information that NZPM has or provides is that there is unlimited liability. So that, what is that? One would say, well, whatever the cost.
So we could seek clarification
Yep.
around that in our submission.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Thank you very much.
That we seek clarification about the extent of that, and also get confirmation that the council is regarded as one of the third parties that would be entitled to damages. We just need to know for sure that that is the case.
But on that, can we not request that they place a more substantial bond than 10 million? That's pathetic.
Well, no, I don't know whether that 10 million is accurate or not. It talks about unlimited liability, which, you know, could be billions of dollars.
So
Yes.
we should get this from NZPM.
Yes, I think so.
NZPM, I think they're called. Okay. Yeah, so are we on to debate now?
Oh, no, I just want
Sorry,
a question.
Yep.
With regards to, Glenn kind of mentioned the partnership between iwi and ourselves, and the other partnership we have is with ECAN. So we have the right, we have the responsibility to the high tide mark. ECAN have the rest. I understand that they are not putting in a submission to this. Could we ask them why? Because, I mean, the fact of the matter is we have concerns, but it is only to the high tide, which is ridiculous when we're talking about deep sea drilling. So I would like to know why our partners aren't, or if they're not concerned. Would that be?
I wasn't aware that they weren't making a submission.
Jana just mentioned it before, so I'm presuming.
I actually asked them, and they're not.
So if we could, yeah, because I mean, if we've got concerns, which I think are very valid, why our partners don't?
Yeah, there's somebody that I can talk to over there who I know was involved in the submission. I believe it was last year, so they did do a submission.
They did do a submission last
Yeah.
year, so,
They're not doing a second,
well, apparently not.
well, could we ask, is that appropriate? I mean, it's...
Absolutely, you can ask what you like. Yep. Okay, so if there's no further questions, is that we've got a mover, have we? We've got Councillor Clearwater and Councillor Scandrett seconding. Any debate? Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want to put those? Right. Okay. So the first one is the council, the ITE be delegated to approve the final submission, which will include the appendix. And then Yanni's got second one that the council request ECAN to make a submission.
That we formally request ECAN to make a submission and circulate a copy of ours to them.
Yep. And the third one?
That the council add an additional 1.3 to our submission that states, given the above concerns, we are opposed to the 2016 block bubble.
I think that's fine. You can just do that, can't you?
You'll just do it? Okay.
We just make it clear. Because, yeah.
Okay. And then the third one then is that the council write to MPs, ministers, with a copy of our submission expressing our concerns. And the reason for doing that is with MMP, I think one of the things we do is we write to the government ministers all the time, but actually what we need to understand through Parliament is there's different political parties that make up the government, the Māori Party, ACT, New Zealand First, and I think it would be really useful for us to actually start to express our views to those other parties who are part of the decision making at central government, and just so that they're aware of what our concerns are. Also local MPs, I hope, I have requested previously that we can have a meeting with the various local MPs and the various political parties at some stage in the near future, because it is important when we think about the future of ECAN, the future of some of these submissions and regeneration, that we actually do start engaging with them over trying to get the outcomes that we want for the city.
Okay. So. Thanks, Yanni. So just to get this right, the first one should read up the top that the council formally request ECAN to make a submission on this issue. The second one we don't need because we can just add that in. It's implicit. You just want it made explicit. And then the council wrote to members of parliament and ministers with a copy of the council submission expressing concern about this issue.
Can I just check? Do you mean all MPs and all ministers?
I think probably local ones. Do you? Or
it should go to all, because if you think about how Parliament works, actually, you know, it's quite common for a letter to go to all MPs, and it's actually just an email. So
it went to all MPs, it would go to ministers anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you just write to members of parliament, we can take the ministers out because they're included. Right. So just members of parliament. Okay. Okay. Any other debate before I put these? Phil.
Well, I guess we'll have some further discussion too at the committee, but that's more, I guess, the fine-tuning of it. But I just want to start by saying what an excellent report Diane has written for us. It's very professional, the science is there, and it's absolutely clear. And I think one of the things that I've become clear on since it came to our committee previously, is how in fact the economic benefits around deep sea drilling are clearly overrated. And the information we had around the royalties, in fact New Zealand will be about the 4th lowest royalty taken in the world, that sort of begs a lot of questions really. And also that any oil produced would be processed overseas. The other factor too, that in fact New Zealand has no experience of deep sea drilling for oil. We do in Taranaki, but it's the risks connected with deep sea drilling are just so much greater. I think it's of serious concern that in fact we've got this proposition the government so far is supporting, but there's been no cost-benefit analysis whatsoever done to date. The concern too about a potential oil spill, I've got no doubt, especially having heard the submitters, is not overrated, because in fact a deep sea drilling, an oil spill would spread much further, and even in terms of how there's some limits on the drilling, of course, but we all know that, for example, the 12 nautical mile limit, we all know, though, that in fact, if there is an oil spill, there's no limit to where that a serious disaster of oil spreading could go to. And like we do know that the example in the Gulf of Mexico, the Horizon disaster, the costs there were around $70 billion. This country cannot afford anything like that. So I think, too, and I thank Ian for making the point that we need to clarify about the liability, so we do need clarity that in the event of a disaster too, just what proportion of any recovery costs our City Council would be obliged to pay. So, I strongly support the submission. I think this is an important role for not only government, but we're local government, to look after our citizens and our children and our environment. So, because there is clearly a combined number of threats here, and it's a very important submission to support.
Thank you. Glenn, I've got next then Yanni.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by acknowledging, yes, I think it is a very good report, and pointing out that in parts 1.2 and 5.3 in the report, in relation to some criticism directed at the council this week, that in fact the council was invited and has been invited, it's there in black and white, to make a submission on this block offer. It is well within our bounds to do so. We have a responsibility, and in relation to that, I think we have a responsibility with to Mahanui Kiratau to uphold that kaitiakitanga, that stewardship of our environment. The four well-beings technically may be out of the LGA, but they pop up still in various other places, and it behoves us to uphold those. It's good to see also in 3.49 the reference back to our climate strategy, which is now 20 years old in this council in relation to ongoing use of fossil fuels. In that respect, I think it's a very good comprehensive report. I encourage you all to support these amendments put forward, which I think are very good, from Councillor Johansson.
Okay, thanks, Yanni.
Yeah, just to be quick, I think it is an excellent submission, and it raises very real and legitimate concerns, and all that adds up to saying actually we should oppose this block offer. To me, this is actually not a question of if, it's a question of when something goes wrong. And this is a huge gamble to play in terms of our environment. It's a gamble that I'm not prepared to take. And I think it's great that we've seen this council being very progressive in its thinking around what the consequences will be when something goes wrong, and if it happens to be within our area. I cannot understand and I want to acknowledge both sides of the political spectrum, this government and previous governments, who have actually put energy into coming up with marine reserves and actually supported the idea that we would protect some of these really fundamental things that make us unique as New Zealand and encourage tourism and encourage a healthy environment. So I cannot understand why we should put that at risk. And when you look at the proposed block offer for our region in particular, adjacent to a marine reserve. It just doesn't make any sense at all. So the reality is that if something goes wrong, it will have devastating consequences on us as a city and us as a region, and we should vehemently oppose what's being sought. The issue of local democracy is, I think, incredibly relevant in terms of people not even having a right to have a say, and so that's why we as a council, I think, need to take a strong role in challenging what this sort of behaviour could lead to. The other point is you only need to look at what's happening with fuel prices to really wonder whether this is actually a very good investment at all. And I would suspect that in the short to medium term, actually there's no need for this sort of activity to be occurring. And we're much better trying to do things like build a cruise ship terminal to encourage people to come and enjoy our marine reserves or our natural environment or the things that make us unique as New Zealand or Christchurch, rather than taking a high stakes gamble such as the deep sea oil exploration.
Thank you. Shall I put them separately? Is everybody happy with all together? Yeah. Okay, I'll put those. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? David? Right, yep. Do you want it noted? Okay. So it's carried. Thank you very much indeed. That's item number 22. Thanks, Diane. Thank you, Ian, for your excellent legal wisdom. Thanks, Ellen. Yeah. No, I'll suffer, don't worry. Okay, regs and consents we've done, strategy and finance we've done, and so we're on to item number 25, the report of the Urban Development Strategy Implementation Committee meeting, which is probably a report back, is it? Richard, hello.
Good afternoon.
Did you want to tell us anything?
I think most of it's outlined in the report itself. The purpose of these reports is simply to update Council on the comings and goings of the Urban Development Strategy Implementation Committee, which meets monthly. Councillors Lonsdale, Clearwater and the Mayor sit on that, and really this is just to keep the other councillors who don't sit on that committee informed of what happens. Okay. So most of the information is contained in the minutes that form part of the appendix. Probably the next report I provide to you, which will be an update on the UDS refresh, is going to be a little bit more substantive than this one and the previous one.
Okay, thank you. Is it moved? Moved Glenn, seconded Ali. Got that?
Just a question.
Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. I just note in here that you talk about the refresh by April 2016. I had prepared a notice of motion to share an idea too, but people were concerned that there were other processes underway to kind of look at not just a central city vision for the city, but actually a vision for the entire Christchurch. I was just concerned that to do a UDS refresh by April 2016 with the holidays in the middle seems like an incredibly challenging thing to do if you want to engage with the community about what outcomes we desire as a city. So is there anything else we should be thinking about in terms of coming up with a vision for the city that could inform this work in this time frame?
Just so I can respond to that, I think it will be a challenging time frame to meet. We did suggest something a little bit longer, but the collective view of the people we sat on UDSIC was that it be done by April. But there will be some work post that date. So I think that the anticipation is that we'll bring together the high-level vision, refresh the strategy. That will be summarised into a short but succinct document. But the work will continue to be ongoing post that time. So, but yes, certainly it is anticipated that there'd be quite extensive engagement, and but that's probably going to be the subject of when I bring the refresh proposal to you at the next council committee meeting, and we can get into the detail of what that looks like, because the UDSIC are keen for individual councils to endorse the UDS refresh that was presented to UDSIC recently. So
what I'm trying to understand, because this council's talked a lot about grassroots up rather than top-down approach. So what's the opportunity for us to have a grassroots approach so that people feel meaningfully engaged at the start of a process rather than what we've traditionally had in the last few years, which is being told what's happening, e.g. the blueprint.
I think good opportunity in a nutshell. So that,
we do that as a city.
Okay.
That's what we'll discuss at the next meeting, but there is a process which has been developed for pretty wide-ranging engagement on the UDS refresh. But I think you need to bear in mind that the UDS is a pretty high-level document. So it's not getting down into you can do that on this site and this on another site. It really sets a collective vision for Greater Christchurch and says, does that still fit? And to sum up what that vision currently is in 2 words, it's about urban consolidation. That's what we talk about at the moment. Are we achieving that? If we're not, what do we need to do better? There's a whole lot of other stuff that sits underneath it, but that's to me is the key premise which underpins the UDS.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a mover and a seconder. There's no further debate. I'm going to put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried. Thank you. The NERP. Thanks, Richard. Chrissy. Natural Environment Recovery Program Progress Report. Chrissy and Clive. Chrissy and Clive. Welcome.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything before we have questions or anything? You did?
Just to cap that, with respect to the Natural Environment Recovery Program, the key points for our council are really around what's happened with the district plan review. Obviously there's a number of chapters there, the coastal chapter and the natural and cultural heritage chapters have now been notified and people have submitted on that. So from that perspective, those are key chapters that are important with the matters that are in the NERP. And obviously there's still a lot of work going on in the surface water program around Flockton Basin. I know that a lot of work has started on that, and the lower part of Flockton, the Dudley Creek area, is now out for contractors to be appointed, etc. So that work is certainly going ahead as planned. And just the other item that will be of interest to a lot of people is the fact that we have the 3 water strategy, which is of course the surface water, the water supply and the wastewater matters, is going to bring the 3 current strategies on water together as one. The work has started, and so that's pleasing to see that. That will become hopefully as a final draft for council by May of next year. So that's it from specifically for Christchurch City Council.
And Madam Deputy Mayor, just the other things I just talk about that aren't in the written report, but that you'll be aware that there's a technical advisory group comprising strategic partners that is meeting 2 monthly. We've got a meeting next week, and I intend for us to discuss the future of the NERP project and how they might sit within the UDS refresh or in the UDS, and how we can continue reporting on environmental projects across the strategic partners as we do here. So it may end up being a different format, but and under different headings. But I think people have, certainly at UDS I see, have asked for some continuation of this sort of collection of reporting on a wide range of environmental projects. So that'll be discussed next week. Second point is I've had an abstract accepted for the People and Disasters Conference that's here in Wigram in February. And just the title of that is The Importance of the Natural Environment to Health and Wellbeing in a Disaster. And the work that's been done around the Community Wellbeing Strategy Survey and the Community Wellbeing Index are invaluable information for that talk, that discussion that I'll be giving. And I know that's been a SERA-driven report, surveys and index that have been done, but I think it's important as partners we continue with that. It was in existence before the earthquake around the quality of life survey across the eight cities, but I think there's some really good trend data that would be good to maintain. So sometime that would be good to make sure that discussion's happening. Third point, I just wanted to appreciate the invitation I've had from Councillor Cotter to attend the Land Drainage Recovery Program Working Party. I think it's again, a lot of good information that feeds into the NERT, but I can also take stuff back to the wider Environment Canterbury staff if it's relevant. And then the fourth thing was the relationship with the zone committees. I heard this morning you talking about the Heathcote reports coming regularly to the ITE committee, and I think that's important. But the Heathcote reports will also be going to the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee.
No
and
problem
in fact,
with that.
Next week they've got a discussion around some of the research.
No problem with that. The object of that exercise is to make very visible what's happening on the Heathcote and all that's happening on the Heathcote, and then to find what isn't happening on the Heathcote and to make it happen. It was a particular emphasis that we wanted to give. Obviously, it doesn't stop it going anywhere else.
No, I didn't expect it. Well, I'm just saying that I think it's good it's going to both. And with my NERP hat on, I've been working with that Opawaho Heathcote network because I see that they're doing an amazing job getting the groups that are working in different parts of the river together.
It might be a good idea if the zone committee had some sort of minutes or memo or something that comes to council. For instance, there's the Addington Creek and Brook and the Riccarton Stream. There's a lot of work going on there. So I think what we're trying to get is the link from the zone committee through to council. So we'll discuss that on Thursday, I think, at the zone committee and see what we can strengthen. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Are there any questions of Chrissy or Clive?
There was just one more. Sorry,
Chrissy.
Vicky, was the other zone committee that's relevant to yourselves is with the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee. Coming out of the Littleton Port Recovery Plan was the non-statutory recommendation that there's an integrated catchment management plan for Whakarapu Littleton Harbour, and that's going to be led under the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee, probably through a subcommittee. So, and Christchurch City is an important partner in that, along with Environment Canterbury, Littleton Port, Te Runanga Onatahu, and both Rapaki and Kokararatas as Runanga. So, and others. I mean, DOC is there as well. So, I just think that's important that, although that's come out of a recovery plan, some of the issues in Littleton are earthquake related. Some are obviously historic and much wider. So, and lastly, in the report under recreation, just do want to note the opening of the 360 trail that I know you with the Deputy Mayor and other councillors for the opening, and I think that's a good opportunity for some of the natural environment in Christchurch to be celebrated and explored. And also, I'm aware that the management plan for Montgomery Spur had a intermediate bike track intended in that, and there's discussions with the volunteers that work on the hills and staff to try and get that developed to replace some of the lost tracks that aren't accessible because of rockfall. I'll do the rest by questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. Just two pretty straightforward questions and then one probably a little bit more interesting. Just on 13, when are we likely to get a flat water facility report to council over what's been proposed or looked at?
Is that directed?
Is that for Chrissy?
No, I can't answer that.
No, I think it's beyond.
Oh, well, it just says consider establishment of water sports areas beside the Avon River Otakaro. I was just trying to understand if there's any time frame for us getting a report looking at what those opportunities are.
I think you're going to have to ask somebody else at a different time.
Maybe we could just get some information back from the Chief Executive. Just under 16, actually, it's really impressive to see the Christchurch Airshed record lowest ever number of high pollution days. And I just wondered whether there'd been any analysis as to why that was and how that would impact on perhaps ECAN's thinking or our submissions to the banning of log burners or solid fuel heating, given that has been an issue that we previously have discussed as a council.
High pollution days are very variable each year and are very dependent on weather conditions. So I know there's been some work done at looking at the weather conditions this last winter compared with other winters. So, I don't know whether we had a particularly windy or winter. You'll perhaps remember better than I do. You need to remember the goals under the National Environmental Standard is to get down to 1 exceedance per year, so 7's still a long way from 1. So I again, I can't talk for the whole air plan. It's under submission at the moment. It's actually under hearing at the moment. So, but the air plan is out for submission. That I'm sure you're aware of its content. So I won't comment on any changes to that policy.
When does that National Environment Standard come in?
It's already in, and it's got.
No, but when does the one?
2016, I think. 2016.
So that's next year.
But maybe three exceedance in 2016. And sorry, there's 2 steps to it. I know that, and I'm sorry, I don't know the dates exactly.
And then just a kind of bigger question, which is obviously the visibility of the NERP and all the different projects has been really good. But do you think there's a need for an environmental impact assessment of the earthquake effects on our city to kind of inform our spending priorities going forward?
You mean a retrospective look at the impact?
We're actually looking at what the environmental impact of the earthquake has been.
So the NERP itself, the work to prepare for the NERP did that. I suppose in my ongoing thinking and presentations to conferences is continually to look at that. There's no formal assessment required, expected, or planned for, but that's something we could talk about at the technical advisory group about doing some reflection before we pass the NERP through to the UDS.
It's just really, if we were looking at an opportunity to prioritise where our spending should go to make the biggest impact on getting a better environment, where would we spend that money, and what would inform that prioritisation?
The intention of the NERP is that all the work that's been done and is being done reverts to back to the responsible entity, and that they continue, and those decisions are made for councils through their LTP processes. So that earthquake isn't going to go on forever, and we do need to get back to sort of business as usual. But.
Thank you. Any other questions? Phil.
Thanks, Chrissy. I just wanted to ask you about, in terms of the connection with the natural environment and its and people's recovery, and you gave the example of the 360 trail, which we opened the other Saturday, and I just wondered if, you'll be aware that council prepare quite a lot of maps for local people, including current local walks, both the larger ones across the Port Hills and smaller ones. But I'm just wondering if that might be, and for the area of, say, psychosocial recovery, if you think that council might be able to add to that by way of where a lot of the walking tracks are, where are the places people can cycle and that kind of thing, and really, I guess, extend the mapping we've already done.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that information available. It's just probably not all in one place.
Yeah.
What I've been suggesting to the Heathcote people who are interested in recreation and along the river is to think about doing similar signage to this 360 trails, because the paths are already there, but it's connecting them up and showing, advising people when to cross the river. So where the pamphlets are the right method of letting people know about that now, there's other methods. The Rod Donald Conservation Trust is, the Rod Donald Banks Peninsula Trust has done a lot of work on looking at mapping all the tracks, no matter who owns them or manages them on the Port Hills and right through Banks Peninsula. So there is information there. It's an absolute opportunity. Yeah.
It's perhaps pulling it together somehow.
Okay.
Too. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, guys. So moved by Paul, seconded by Jimmy. I'll put it. Those in favour, please say aye. Okay. Those opposed, carried. Thank you very much indeed.
And the next report will be a 6-monthly report back in April next year, so that'll be the last one under the NERP heading. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Clause 27, the Provincial Council Chambers and the Old Municipal Chambers. Is this you, Dave?
Alistair.
Oh, Alistair, of course. Okay. Do you want to say anything? The report's incredibly simple and logical.
Sure.
Easy to follow, and Andrew's going to move it, and Jamie's going to second it.
I wouldn't say no to that.
Did you want to say anything? You're very welcome to.
No, I'm here to answer questions if required.
Right. Okay. So, Dave and then Yanni.
Do we actually have a projected budget for the repair of the provincial chambers?
The Provincial Chambers, the notional budget of $100 million was mooted some time ago. We've only just via the new LTP been able to investigate that work further. We've only just started to get into that work. Whilst 100 million is an awful lot of money, the money that's been allocated in the LTP will allow us to investigate that so we can get a better number on it. Now, these jobs are notoriously difficult to budget for because you don't often know what you've got until you uncover it. So with this piece of work that we're doing right now, which hasn't been finished, we'll have a better indication of cost, and it will be coming to the council with contingencies allocated to ensure that we've got a good handle on what we're doing, and we don't come back asking for more money. But the money that's in the LTP, which we're suggesting by this paper, is 30 million rather than 40 for provincial chambers. That 30 million will repair a substantial section of that facility and safeguard that, and the building is pretty well protected at the moment at the far end, and the 30 million option should be able to buy us some time and get a corner of the building back open.
I think there's a couple of things that we could think about. The corner, this proposal will do the wooden part, which is, while maybe not the most spectacular, is the most historic. It's the oldest part of the, so we are doing the part that's deteriorating, and the rest will be put in hold. And we've got a 5-step program, but some of those we may be able to find partners to help us. For example, the stone part closest to the town hall used to be run as a bar and a cafe and whatever. There may be an opportunity to do that. One of the things as we develop the business plan is also to look at what is the long-term use of those buildings, because they're going to survive a lot better if they're living buildings rather than buildings that we only open on a Sunday afternoon and let people through. So I think we've got to try and get some use out of those buildings that is in kind of flavour with the building themselves. So I think while there's some big money involved, there's also potential to find some other partners, and it's also not only our history there, it's history of other organisations, both locally and regionally and nationally.
Okay, Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. 2 questions. One is, these seem ideal candidates for a philanthropic campaign to fundraise. Have they been put into some sort of process to raise external funding?
We haven't started that. We've obviously got, as we've put up to you in the last, we've got a philanthropic funding to look at some issues around the library to try and do that. We've got a strategy, but basically as that strategy moves forward, that foundation should cover all range of council projects, and so there will be the opportunity. There will be people out there that would want to or may want to specifically put money towards heritage, and these would be 2 ideal candidates, I agree, but at this point we are just trying to hold them, and as we have said in the paper, we believe we've got a matter that we need to address reasonably urgently with our city, and that's really the background of this paper in the first instance.
And the second question was...
Sorry, can I just add to that,
yeah.
Yanni? The Stone Towers is one of the areas that's been addressed, as David mentioned before, with stage 1. We have had some funding towards that was earmarked some time ago. It's approximately $2.5 million Earthquake Appeal Trust money. So there is a start on there, but it is a bigger piece, and there's a larger philanthropic element to look at when you look at across the council. But there is already money allocated to that. It's one of the reasons that we're suggesting that the stage 1 is stage 1 to ensure that money is safeguarded.
So how soon can we get the wooden section of the building open in the provincial chambers and used, and whether it's council using it instead of paying private landlords or someone else?
But the idea is early next year we're going to come back to the council and explain the next steps and how we move forward with this, inclusive of some early business case work for potential uses which will actually safeguard the building, as David's already mentioned. So early next year we'll come back with some better deadlines. Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? You're at Ref.
Sorry. So what's the, sorry if this has been answered before, what's the total cost of repair?
I dodged that question just before.
Yeah.
So the provincial chambers is being mooted at $100 million. Now, it's a substantial amount of money. The $30 million that we're allocating via this paper, if the paper gets agreed, will ensure that we, one, safeguard the corner, and two, have a much better handle on the 4 other subsequent stages of that facility. As soon as you open up these sort of heritage buildings, you come across all kinds of problems. So whilst $100 million is not quite a finger in the air, because we have got it from consultants, they haven't had the time or resource spent on it to give us any sort of clarity on that number. When I come back in the new year, we'll have a much better handle on that, because without turning everything over and understanding all the reports and pulling all that information together, it still remains too woolly for me, and I want to be able to come back with a better number on it. It still will have a significant contingency on it, because these buildings are notoriously difficult. We've been over to the Arts Centre as an example and spoke to the main contractors there, and we took some learnings from that, and it's inevitably a difficult facility to pinpoint a cost on.
And what's the cost of both of them together?
Well, we've suggested $10 million for the old municipal chambers. It depends on the repair techniques undertaken. If we dust off each brick and put it back into place, that's going to be one amount of money. If we take perhaps a more pragmatic approach, it'd be another. We haven't determined those philosophical positions from a heritage protection perspective, and that's where we've got to speak to the wider community to ensure that we're getting these important inputs early, to ensure they give the job clarity, to ensure when I come back to council, I can actually say that's how much it's going to be. So if you were to combine the numbers that we're talking at the moment, we've got 100 million for provincial chambers and approximately 10 million for all municipal chambers.
Okay, so there's currently 40 million on the LTP. This takes 10 million of that 40 and puts it over to the old municipal chambers.
So the alternative
and
is,
obviously doesn't leave enough, regardless of whether it's 30 or 40 million for the repair.
That was our take on it, but it has been a significant amount of money spent protecting the asset on provincial chambers and almost nothing on old municipal chambers and the buildings at risk.
Faces some risk. Okay. Yep, Jamie.
It's just that I think it makes.
Are we on to we've finished questions?
Oh, unless there's other questions.
No, we're on to debate.
No, I just think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good report. I look forward to seeing the numbers further down the line. There is a part of me that almost thinks, I'm a big believer that you often go for the low-hanging fruit, and when you've got something the size of the Canterbury Provincial Chambers, 2 very special buildings, then compared with our city building or the municipal chambers, it's probably more manageable. A part of me almost wants to just crack onto that immediately. But in saying that, I think this is a pragmatic approach. It's not new money, it's a reallocation of an existing budget. So doing this, I think, is prudent, because it really ensures that there's not going to be further deterioration, which would see a far bigger financial hole potentially in the long term. So look, it's a good move, and it's a very special building, and I'm really looking forward to when they have a use again.
Cool. Any other debate? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? You are. Thank you very much indeed, guys. I've come to the end of the public agenda. Have I missed anything? Sorry? No? Right. In that case, I need to move the resolution to exclude the public, and it's moved by Glenn and seconded by Yanni. Put that, those in favour. All right, and we leave Mr. Bob Lynham. He's not here. Mr. Bob Lynham, I don't know. we can get him when we need him. Okay, so that's the end of the public meeting. Thank you for your attendance, anybody who's not staying.